Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Benalla Art Gallery. I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional custodians of the land on which we are meeting, paying my respects to their elders, past and present, and to elders from other communities who may be here today. Also, it gives me great pleasure to acknowledge Councillor O'Brien, who is in the room, the many familiar faces in the crowd, including from Council's management team, the Benalla Art Gallery Committee, the Friends of Benalla Art Gallery, volunteers, and also a very warm welcome to new faces in the audience. Today, I feel very privileged to be introducing a very special talk by Nicole Durling, who last year took the helm at Craft Victoria following an illustrious 15 years as part of the curatorial leadership team at Mona in Tasmania. Nicole is, of course, the second speaker in our series exploring the power of cultural infrastructure. Through this talk series, we'll enjoy insights from a number of esteemed peers about the real world and wide-ranging benefits they may have achieved through their leading institutions. This series provides the opportunity to collectively imagine and advance towards an even more prosperous future for Benalla Art Gallery, the Benalla community, and the broader region, and particularly to identify how those real-world examples align to the social, cultural, and economic outcomes which were detailed as being attainable through a recent feasibility study and business case into the redevelopment of Benalla Art Gallery. As we know, the state government, and we thank them very much, has already committed to stage 1 redevelopment funding through $3 million. This series of talks would not be possible without the skilled and committed support of our partners at RACV and MPavilion. Particularly, I'd like to thank Megan Ballantyne, Marty Novak, Ellen Wignall, Sam Redston, Jen Zelinska, who's with us here this morning, Molly Braddon, and the incredible tech team, Phil and Oasis, joining us from MPavilion today. As you may have noticed, today's talk is also being recorded, so you will be able to watch again in the coming months and to share throughout your networks. Finally, in introducing Nicole, I wanted to share a little personal anecdote which points to the true allure of institutions such as Mona and Craft. It was 2012, 1 year after Mona had launched. I'd already heard so much about this incredible institution, which was bending and even breaking the rules and delivering a truly immersive exhibition experience, with visitors guided by their own handheld device, ominously titled the O, tracking every step you made and providing dynamic, relevant, and at times irreverent gonzo content about the artworks that you were nearest. Making the trip from North Queensland, I had never actually been to Tasmania previously. I had to sandwich the trip as a quick stop between work arrangements, so I was only there for what was actually AFL Grand Final. The Swans beat Hawthorn for those playing at home. And despite never having explored Tasmania, I was so in awe of Mona that I spent my entire time there, bar a lunch break to watch the second half. Fast forward 9 years, and I, like all of us, have been unable to visit Melbourne due to ongoing COVID lockdowns and restrictions for a period of time. And on the first weekend that I was able to get there, sure enough, heading to a celebration of Craft Victoria's beautiful exhibition, Future Remains. Nicole, thank you for joining us and for sharing your experiences of engaging communities inside and outside the gallery proper. Please make Nicole welcome.
Hello. It's working. Wow, hi. Eric, thank you so much. I'm just really happy to see everybody here today. Welcome. And And I also acknowledge the traditional owners and custodians of the land on which we gather today, and I pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So, I'm Nicole Durling, as Eric introduced me, and I'm really grateful for Benalla Art Gallery for hosting me today, and to M Pavilion and RACV for the warm invitation to be a part of this series, something that I feel very passionate about, and as maybe Eric touched on, something I know perhaps a little bit about as well. Now, I grew up just down the road, or up the road, in Shepparton. I have really strong memories of this building, of the Benalla Art Gallery, but it was mostly from the view from the swimming pool across the river. I used to do competitive swimming, and when I arrived in Benalla, I had to do a little memorial acknowledgement over there of the swimming pool. It's a really iconic building, and Benalla is so lucky to have this space. Seeing it again today as I arrived, it's as distinct as I originally remembered. Now, a little history, built in 1975, it showed remarkable vision and investment in an art institution for the community and for the region. When I was looking up a little Google search, it's described as a striking modernist building, designed, as probably many of you know, by Colin Munro and Philip Sargent. It's said to be one of rural Victoria's most beautiful compositions of architecture in a landscape. So, speaking of striking buildings and architectural compositions in landscapes, here's another example. Mona. Up until March last year, I spent 15 years of my professional career here. Prior to Mona founder David Walsh purchasing this land, the property, it was a winery titled Marilla Estate. Oh, that is the original site. There are two modernist buildings designed by Roy Grounds, he of NGV St Kilda Road, also another iconic modernist building. They were commissioned by the Alcorso family, who are the ones who established the winery and the estate. The courtyard house here, closest to me, which would be your right, on the right, was built between 1954 and 1956. And the roundhouse down the bottom of the image to the left in 1957. I began working at Mona before it was Mona. I started in early 2006, where planning was underway for what eventually Mona would become. Architectural designs were beginning, construction had not begun. This was Mona around when we opened in January 2011. So you can see oh no, that's not, because it's got the James Turrell in it. Whoops, my bad. Anyway, you can see the courtyard house again to the right and the roundhouse down to the left. This is what Mona looks like currently. I think we're just missing the roundhouse. So what I hope to address today is what this series is focused on, being how can galleries be architecturally and programmatically developed not only to complement and integrate with the surrounding environment, and Benalla has a beautiful surrounding environment here, but to also positively engage a broader cross-section of their community. So one word in that stood out to me, programmatically. It took me back a little bit and I was like, what does that actually mean? It means, in a way that follows a plan or uses a particular method. This seems it sat slightly uncomfortably with me, considering the approach we used to Mona, particularly for programming, which is what I was responsible for. However, architecturally, and I'll speak about that a little bit in detail, there was kind of a plan or method, perhaps, rules to adhere to with the design and development considerations. And so really the architectural elements of Mona that I hope to make specific here today for this topic, I'll flesh out. So David Walsh and Nanda Katstolides were the architect. So it was kind of a collaborative design process together, or sometimes not very collaborative. A couple of rules in this phase was that the 2 Roy Grounds buildings had to be retained. They were significant and, of course, heritage listed. Another requirement, which came from David Walsh, was that the entrance was to be deliberately not obvious. And the addition of the tennis court on the main forecourt of Mona was there to throw visitors off the scent. And the architect at the time thought this was an abomination on his miraculous architectural vision. And having spoken with Nanda since, he now understands and actually quite loves it. So you can see the entrance there to Mona behind that mirrored wall, which is the entrance in through the courtyard house. And of course, the planning was required to follow the usual council, building restrictions, so on and so forth. So Mona became embedded into the banks of the Derwent River, between the courtyard house and the roundhouse. They became like bookends to the museum. So the top slide is another sort of atypical design element, which was, I'll say, possibly atypical, was the planning methodology used. The first thing you see when you enter Mona, for those who've been there, is really the bar. This is what David Walsh wanted, and this is what he got. The galleries, which is the image on the bottom, were linked across 3 levels by a staircase that seemed to be self-supporting, zigzagging from the top floor down to the bottom floors. Then what was connected the galleries and the museum proper through to the roundhouse was a tunnel, which then started becoming a series of tunnels and additional new wings. So the sort of master plan of Mona kind of really unfolded as we went. David Walsh learned as he kind of, he's an autodidact, so he sort of learnt as he went, and understanding the space and the location, continued to figure out what he wanted to do with the building. This is a slide of one of the wings called the Faro Swing, and this is opened in 2017. This houses a series of James Turrell works as well as other artworks, plus a restaurant, and this is what you see here. It's a space with a lot of natural light, providing some respite from the darkness of the museum proper. Nothing that you suffer from here at Benalla, such an extraordinarily beautiful space and an extraordinarily beautiful outlook from your cafe. And that orb is an artwork. That's by James Turrell. So 2 people can go in at a time, and it's this sort of all-encompassing light experience. Another wing opened in mid-2019, called Siloam, and that was again linked by a series of tunnels. It included works by Ai Weiwei, Alfredo Jarre, and this piece, which is Oliver Beer's Confessional. His work was designed into the architecture, and this, you see the people sort of speaking into what is almost like a giant analogue microphone, which goes down into the museum and connects with a piece, a room down there. So in a way, the inside is engaged with the outside. So it's one of those things that as a part of the Mona team, we continue to think about how we connect to the site. How do we bring the outside inside and vice versa? So I'll just shift now into what was my specialist area, being the programming. But if you're keen to know a little bit more about the architectural process and the design of the Mona's building, there's a really fabulous interview on their website with one of the lead architects. So how can galleries be developed to positively engage a broader cross-section of their community? In the planning phase of Mona, we had no set goals per se, other than there was a museum being built that we had to put artworks from David Walsh's collection inside. We developed briefing documents, endless iterations of, and we just took them almost as a path to stray from. On Mona's website now, there is an About section. This is the level of positioning, explanation or vision statement provided now and really always. So Eric touched on the O device, which Mona used instead of wall labels, and it can be irreverent. Well, here's some irreverence from my former boss. Some of them are true, some of them are misleading perhaps, but, and again, maybe to throw people off the scent, but actually I think all of them are true. It's interesting to look in hindsight about what you have worked on for a long time and then step back from it, which leaves me very proud to have been a part of something so remarkable and, a game changer, as many people have said. So this is, as far as thinking about a plan of how to program, what are our guiding principles, this is the sort of world that I worked in for 15 years. I began as a curator with no real experience, to heading up the exhibitions, collections, visitor experience and visitor teams. David Walsh has said, and I'm sort of paraphrasing here, we could follow the same formula 100 times again and we would never get close to what we achieved by opening Mona in 2011. So why did it work? Why does it work? Why do people keep visiting? I think through the About statement, it is about the sum of its parts. It is not just an interior gallery experience, it's the whole shebang. From catching the ferry to lounging around on the lawns listening to music, you don't even have to go inside the gallery, the museum, to have a Mona experience. And I just want to clarify, and it is crucial to emphasise that Mona is a privately owned gallery museum site. It has one stakeholder, one entity, one boss, David Walsh. It is not public money, It is all of David's, and it goes to show what a singular commitment and vision can do. But I also acknowledge that both of the festivals that Mona is charged with hosting, being Mona FOMA, which just finished, I think last day today in Hobart and last weekend in Launceston, and Dark Mofo. Both received Tasmanian state government funding since their inception. These festivals are a part of the way that Mona engages with a broad cross-section of the community through very specific programming. And of course, they go outside the gallery. But the festivals are a part of the whole of Mona. There is a difference to what Mona achieves than to government-funded cultural institutions. Their remits are different. However, what they have in common is audience and a drive to connect and engage. I look at the impact of what an undertaking like Mona can make upon a suburb, and Mona is located in a very working class suburb of Hobart, a community, a city, a region, a state, and the world. Here's some figures. So Mona employs currently, and I just fact-checked this last week with them, around 170 full-time equivalent staff. And during the festival and busy periods, that's 500 plus. Deloitte did a research paper in 2018 and established that Mona contributed $135 million to Tasmanian state product. That's quite extraordinary in what was just 7 years of being open. And you can see there, 165 million to Australia's gross domestic product. Now those numbers aren't worth sniffing at. What that also demonstrates is that, and what I saw and witnessed was that opportunities were created. People wanted to live in Hobart, either the local stayed or mainlanders, as we're called, wanted to move there. It was actually becoming a place where there was something to do, there was somewhere to go, there was hope. Cultural tourism was a real thing, it is a real thing, and it is a game changer. Some of my colleagues struggled initially with understanding that they worked for a tourist facility. I don't have an issue with that, and I think once we realise that tourism is not a dirty word, that we embraced it. So here's some of Mona's visitation numbers. So pre-pandemic, over 400,000 people came every year. 4.4 million since opening. And you can see the breakdown of Tasmanians who are allowed in free, very important, and a crucial part of David Walsh's philosophy is about accessibility. But Mona does charge the mainlanders and internationals, you can see there. So these figures have remained pretty consistent since Mona opened. However, some of the non-Tasmanians, when they could get there, when the borders were open, increased as Mona's reputation grew. Some of the key interstate markets are Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland, so probably no surprises there. And interestingly, top international visitor markets, the UK, USA, New Zealand, Hong Kong, France and Germany. Over the past 2 years of COVID and Tasmanian state border lockdowns, visitation is trending down 20%, a former colleague told me last week. However, interestingly, and probably not surprising, visitation from Hobartians grew by 20%, and visitation from across Tasmania went up by 89%. So of course they couldn't leave the state, but it showed that they were looking for something to do. They wanted to engage, and I thought that was very interesting to hear. So for 9 months across 2020, Mona was closed to the public due to the pandemic. We looked for a way, and this is when I was still with Mona, looked for a way to maintain connection with community and provide engagement outside of the museum galleries. And this opportunity came via an artwork that we already had on site. Ryoji Aikida's Spectra. This is an absolutely phenomenal piece where it has 49 searchlights. I mean, these are military-grade searchlights that the artist wanted it turned on twice a year at summer and winter solstices, but we sought permission to turn it on every Saturday night for the whole time that Mona was closed. It was a beacon of hope. It was an acknowledgement of we're still here. We see you, you see us. It was also live streamed. So those who couldn't actually see it, I mean, it's pretty hard not to see it in Hobart. And we were overwhelmed at the time with positive thanks and gratitude, because it did feel like life was still going to go on, even if we were in lockdown. So Mona reopened on Boxing Day 2020. David wanted to open on Christmas Day. Such is his will. But with Tasmanian borders closures a looming reality, locals became our focus. And a strategy was planned and implemented to draw Tasmanians back to Mona. And possibly those numbers that I spoke to just before are indicative to see that they wanted to come. This was one of the final pieces of programming I did for Mona before I left. And it was very different to the initial opening 10 years prior. We did follow a sort of path, plan, and a particular methodology, kind of. This was we actively and consciously sought to engage and provide experiences for locals that was accessible and reached a broad demographic. On the top right is a playground by Tom Ottenes that was installed for the reopening. Top left. Anyway, we created, David Walsh's wife, Kirsha, created a model train diorama called Monorail. That's a little close-up there. We booked 280 local bands to play every day on the museum over 3 months, and you can see the people there on their social distancing mats. And we set up a burger shop with hot chippies called Dubsy's Burgers. So since its inception, Mona has been an expression of a specific identity, that being David Walsh's. There's an honesty and authenticity that people seem to connect with, and there's multiple ways to engage. If they didn't like the art, they liked the architecture, or the food, or the music, or the wine, or the beer, or the chickens. Or maybe it was the absurdity or folly of the whole endeavour. I have observed over time that people are motivated by different drivers and interests. As we program, we cannot know what the audience wants or how they seek to engage. Does it matter that hundreds of Mona visitors have left hostile one-star TripAdvisor reviews after feeling extremely disappointed or downright appalled? Good, bad, or indifferent, generally people seek experiences. They seek to engage, looking for something to do. When David Walsh originally conceived Mona, he wanted something to do. The ripple effects of doing cannot be truly known or understood. It is my job, our jobs, to make sure audiences have access, to do with conviction, to make sure we are given support to try and rally around each other, and to be able to get on and do our jobs as arts professionals. Wherever it is, inside, outside, or underwater, build it or do it, and they will come commitment. So here's this wonderful piece of Chen Zhen, which is on the rooftop of Mona, and that is probably one of the best views from a trampoline in the country. So I'll just leave it there for the moment, and as I step away from Mona, and to talk about what I'm currently involved with in Melbourne. I am on the board of the Rising Festival, and my day job, as you may have seen earlier, is the Executive Director of Craft Victoria. So I'll speak to Rising first. Now, I'm a non-executive, I'm just on the board, so my role there is as an art curator, as a programmer. And Rising was born out of White Night and the Melbourne International Arts Festivals a few years ago, to be staged across Melbourne during winter. It was supposed to launch in 2020, postponed due to the pandemic. Then in 2021, Rising had one glorious opening night on the 26th of May before lockdown number 5 hit and the festival was unable to reopen. The co-artistic directors are Melbourne's own Hannah Fox and Gideon Oberzanek. It is positioned as a surge of art, music, performance, ceremony in the heart of Melbourne. And an engine and platform for powerful art and social connection. Rising is a festival driven to achieve broad community engagement and significant cultural impact. Its programming looks to occupy various locations from traditional cultural venues to car parks, public parklands, rivers and civic buildings. Significant programming focus for Rising is on amplifying First Peoples voices. And I have a little video here of one of the extraordinary pieces, and if we're talking about engaging with communities and taking art outside of a gallery, this fabulous piece, Rivers Sing, by Deborah Cheetham with artists Tom Supple and Byron Scullen. It's a large-scale sonic artwork and a layering of First Peoples voices singing in languages. Over 6 weeks, in the lead up to Rising, the Rivers Sing wound its way along the Birrarong and Maribyrnong rivers, and this video is filmed at the Abbotsford Convent site. So So let's see if I can get this to play. So a little snippet. It played every dusk. And when lockdown hit, this was able to continue to be played along the Birrarung, just near Birrarung Ma. And for those within the 5K zone, were able to come down and experience it. And it was also live streamed. It was an extraordinary creative experience that could only exist outside of a gallery. Now here are 3 other examples of works outside traditional gallery spaces. Wandering Stars, this fabulous eel lantern installation running along the Birrarung. Patricia Piccinini's A Miracle Constantly Repeated in the extraordinary and rarely seen spaces in Flinders Street Station. Now this piece or installation is still open as well and remains running. And you can also get up to see the fabled ballroom of Flinders Street Station. And the bottom one at my music bowl, which was a whole kind of immersive site of food and art and ice skating. And apparently there at the Sydney Maya Music Bowl, there was ice skating rink, I think there many, many years ago. Some people still have memories of that. So to finish, where I'm currently working is at Craft Victoria. Now, I've been Executive Director at Craft since late June last year. Craft is a not-for-profit arts organisation established in 1970, so over 50 years old. It has always been focused on creating opportunities for artists and makers. We have currently over 800 members, most of whom are active artists and makers. The focus is craft and design practitioners. Our program is exhibitions, studio programs, advice clinics, workshops, public programs, commissioning projects. We have a gallery and showcase displays. This image is of the poster walk that was held in October 2021 as a part of Craft Contemporary. And Craft Contemporary is a month-long festival running across October where we engage with numerous arts organisations, artist studios, and do a lot of activity, a lot of public program, and it runs indoors and outdoors. And this is our outdoor gallery, if you will. And here's a little snippet of some of our social media, website content. We are very, very active in drawing out the artists' voices, the artists' practice. They are who we exist for. Now, I myself have a background as a maker, having studied and majored in ceramics about 30 years ago. My role at Craft feels like it's come full circle. The experience that I have gathered along the way has given me a deep understanding of the importance of art, artists, and culture to our collective ability to connect with each other. It's an expression of our values, of who we are. Creativity is a human trait. It helps us learn about the world around us. It engages our imagination. It connects and binds us together. I've always thought that artists and the creatives are the ones who reflect the world as it is back at us. At Craft, I remain committed to this as I focus on championing artists and creativity as crucial to our lives, to engage with audiences and to make lasting connections. We are collectively responsible to leave a legacy for creating the place and world we want to live in. Thank you.